Today I'm making chocolate chip cookies. Here's the recipe card, and I am modifying it a little bit. You want your butter and eggs to be at room temperature, and when you forget to do that, put your eggs in warm water, boil some water, pour it over a bowl, and put your butter under that hot bowl. And in a few minutes, the butter should be warm enough to work because I almost always forget to put out my butter and eggs an hour ahead of time. So putting this recipe together is very easy. It is a one bowl recipe, which is very nice because there's less cleanup. You beat the eggs, then you beat in the sugar and the butter, then you put in your other wet ingredients, then at the end you pour in your flour and then add chocolate chips, and then you're done. So the eggs I beat just a little bit, and then I added in my softened room temperature butter and the coconut sugar. The original recipe calls for 3/4 of a cup white sugar and 3/4 of a cup brown sugar. I use 1.5 cups of coconut sugar. I used to only use 3/4 of a cup coconut sugar, but then the cookies really weren't sweet at all because coconut sugar is not as sweet as regular sugar. So now I'm up to just doing 1.5 cups of coconut sugar in my recipe. And then I also substitute gluten-free flour for the regular flour that it calls for. It mixes together pretty easily and quickly. I do like to use the hand mixer, especially when creaming my sugar and butter. Then I pour in the vanilla and also the salt. And then I feel that the secret to why this recipe is amazing and the cookies rise beautifully every time is that you mix your 1 teaspoon of baking soda with 2 teaspoons of hot water and then put it in with your wet ingredients. Then this gets thoroughly mixed in the beating process, and it causes the soda to mix just throughout the whole batter, and then your cookies tend to rise perfectly every time. They look like professional cookies. Sadly, at the end, you're going to see that I am having issues with my cookies getting too flat. And I have been looking into this. The Betty Crocker cookbook says it's because your oven is too hot or your butter was too warm and soft when you mixed it in. So far, I haven't found those things to be true yet, so I'm not exactly sure, but maybe something happened to my oven just in the last 2 months, because it's only been the last 2 months. I've been making this recipe for years, and it always comes out beautifully. These are very tasty cookies, and there's a very funny story behind them. The dear sister in the Lord that gave these cookies to me, a dear friend of mine, who is a very good baker, she would not give me these cookies because the recipe for the cookies until I was engaged, because these were the cookies she used to attract her husband. And so she would not give them to me, the recipe, until I was engaged, because they're powerful cookies. I love that. Here I'm taking out a few cookies, one little sheet with 6 cookies on it, without the chocolate chips, because my daughter and some of my friends prefer less chocolate chip cookies. They don't like chocolate chips in their cookies. And so I'll take out a few and have that one tray to bake, and then I add the chocolate chips into the rest of the batter for the rest of us. This recipe makes 2.5 dozen, so I get 2 more trays of cookies out of 12 each out of this recipe, which I find for a family of 4 is just the right amount for taking to a love feast or home meeting or wherever you're taking some, and still having plenty for the family to enjoy at home as well. And The young people in my locality really like these cookies. They always are happy to see them when I bring them. So, and they're very easy to make. You do need to pat them down. Don't leave them in the little balls because it won't bake in the center properly. So I pat them down. These are a little wet, and maybe that's why they're spreading too much. I don't know. I'm going to have to keep experimenting to find out what's going on with the spreading. But normally they just turn out perfectly. And so I would highly recommend that you try these cookies because they make you seem like a really good baker because of how well they turn out. So to my trained eye of having made these cookies for so many years, I can see that they have spread more than I like. I do like chewy chocolate chip cookies. You just bake them for the 10 minutes, take them out right away at the 10-minute mark, and take them right off the tray. Because otherwise the chocolate chips in the cookies start to melt, and it makes it much more messy for cleanup. And if you take them off the tray right away, then that doesn't happen. Your tray stays pretty clean, and even the wire rack stays really clean. So that's another tip when you're making these cookies. Some of them didn't spread that much. Some of them turned out okay. So if you like chocolate chip cookies, I think this is the best recipe. Enjoy.